Have you ever cared deeply for someone who seemed to escape the very thing they secretly wanted most? Someone who created distance instead of closeness, choosing silence whenever emotions became too intense? From the outside, they may look detached, but beneath that distance can be a person who feels far more deeply than they know how to express. When an avoidant experiences genuine love, something powerful begins happening beneath the surface. The emotional defenses they spent years building are slowly challenged. It is not always dramatic or obvious. Often, it is a quiet transformation that changes the way they see vulnerability, intimacy, and connection. For much of their lives, avoidant individuals may depend heavily on control. Controlling their emotions, their surroundings, and especially their relationships can make them feel protected. When early experiences teach someone that depending on others can result in disappointment, rejection, or emotional pain, independence can become their safest place. They learn to rely on themselves, keep their feelings contained, and maintain enough distance to avoid getting hurt. But genuine love introduces something they cannot completely organize or control. Suddenly, they may experience emotions that don't fit neatly into the boundaries they created. They may feel tenderness, longing, attachment, fear of losing someone, or a powerful desire for closeness, while another part of them is still telling them to run. That contradiction is often where the transformation begins. Real love doesn't necessarily force an avoidant to change overnight. Instead, it places them in situations where their usual defenses stop working. They may become confused by their own emotions because they are experiencing something their usual coping strategies cannot easily silence. Slowly, they begin discovering that complete control doesn't actually make them feel safer. Sometimes it only leaves them more isolated. Vulnerability may still feel frightening, but allowing themselves to be known can create a kind of emotional peace they could never find through constant self-protection. The changes may be incredibly subtle. Perhaps their voice becomes softer when discussing something personal. Maybe they share something they normally keep hidden. They might return to a conversation instead of disappearing, acknowledge that they were wrong, or offer an apology when their old instinct would have been to shut down. To someone else, these actions may seem ordinary. For an avoidant, they can represent enormous emotional progress. Each small moment is a decision to choose honesty over defense. Love begins teaching them that openness is not the same as weakness. Being emotionally visible does not automatically mean being rejected. They slowly learn that genuine intimacy requires some uncertainty because no relationship can be completely controlled. Of course, this process rarely moves in a straight line. An avoidant may become closer, feel overwhelmed, pull away, and then return. They may still test the relationship or need distance when their emotions become intense. But something important has changed. They are becoming aware of what is happening inside them. The feelings they once considered unbearable may now feel meaningful enough to face. Eventually, they begin understanding that love is not about maintaining power over another person or constantly protecting themselves from emotional pain. It is about allowing someone into the part of themselves they have spent years guarding. They don't necessarily stop being afraid of intimacy. Instead, their desire for a meaningful connection gradually becomes stronger than the instinct to escape. That surrender to vulnerability can be one of the strongest signs that their feelings are genuine. They begin replacing avoidance with presence, rigid control with growing trust, and emotional distance with honest communication. You may notice them admitting mistakes, seeking reassurance, showing affection, or simply making an effort to remain connected when things become emotionally difficult.
These moments matter because they reveal a new motivation. They are no longer acting only to protect themselves from being hurt. They are beginning to care about protecting something they don't want to lose.
When an avoidant releases even a small amount of control, it can reveal just how meaningful the relationship has become. They are entering the emotional territory that once frightened them, and discovering that vulnerability does not necessarily destroy them. Sometimes, it can actually help them heal. For someone who built their emotional survival around independence and control, opening their heart to another person requires tremendous courage. Their willingness to be seen can become one of the clearest expressions of authentic love. Another major transformation appears in the way they handle emotional presence. Avoidant individuals often respond to emotional intensity by creating distance. When conversations become heavy or feelings become overwhelming, they may shut down, withdraw, or disappear into solitude. Distance can feel like protection from rejection, emotional exposure, or the fear of being consumed by someone else's needs. This doesn't automatically mean they don't care. Often, withdrawal is simply the defense mechanism they learned to use when connection feels unsafe. But genuine love can challenge that pattern. When an avoidant encounters someone who provides warmth without pressure, understanding without criticism, and closeness without trying to control them, their nervous system may gradually begin experiencing connection differently. They can start realizing that staying emotionally present doesn't always lead to pain. The change is usually slow. It can be fragile, inconsistent, and easy to overlook, but it can be incredibly meaningful. Instead of disappearing during difficult conversations, they may remain and listen. Instead of pretending nothing matters, they may try to explain what they're feeling. They might struggle to find the right words, but their behavior begins communicating something powerful. They care enough to stay. Staying means facing the fears they once escaped from: rejection, emotional exposure, losing control, and the possibility of being hurt. Yet love can give them enough reason to tolerate that discomfort. And emotional presence goes far beyond simply being physically nearby. It means allowing another person to see what is happening beneath the carefully controlled exterior. They may begin talking about their stress, admitting when they feel sad, sharing their uncertainty, or revealing emotions they would once have kept completely private. To someone else, these conversations might appear small. For an avoidant, they can represent profound trust, because in those moments, they are no longer hiding behind silence or emotional distance. They are allowing themselves to be known. And that is where authentic connection begins. When an avoidant starts choosing engagement instead of escape, something important has already shifted inside them. They are beginning to understand that emotional closeness does not automatically mean surrendering their identity. Being connected to someone can mean being completely seen, while still being accepted for who they are. You may notice this transformation in the way they respond after emotional moments. Perhaps they once needed several days alone after an argument, but now they come back much sooner. Sometimes, they may even choose to remain present instead of leaving altogether. Their old instinct was built around escape, but gradually, their nervous system begins learning another way to feel safe, through healthy connection. This doesn't mean their fear of intimacy has magically disappeared. Instead, love is giving them a new experience of safety. They are discovering that comfort doesn't always have to come from isolation. Sometimes, feeling understood can be just as calming as being alone. Emotional presence becomes a new kind of strength for them. Quietly, they are challenging the conditioning that once told them distance was the only way to survive difficult emotions. With time, this emotional presence begins appearing in ordinary parts of the relationship too. It isn't limited to serious conversations anymore. You may notice it in playful moments, shared laughter, comfortable silence or simple acts of affection. They might ask how your day went, recognize when something is bothering you, or offer reassurance when you're struggling. Their empathy may not always be dramatic or perfectly expressed, but it becomes more noticeable. They are gradually learning how to love deeply without losing their emotional balance. Every time they choose to stay instead of retreating, they strengthen the relationship while also challenging the wounds that once controlled their behavior. So when an avoidant remains emotionally available instead of disappearing, don't underestimate what that can represent. It can be their quiet way of saying that the connection matters. They are learning to experience emotions without automatically fearing them. They are beginning to hold space for both their feelings and yours, without feeling the need to run from either. That is a profound internal shift, the point where connection begins to feel safer than solitude. Another powerful change appears in the way they relate to personal space and closeness. For many avoidant individuals, distance feels like emotional oxygen. Having space gives them freedom, control, and a sense that they can manage their world without becoming overwhelmed. Their past experiences may have taught them that getting too close to someone can lead to disappointment, rejection, emotional pain, or even a feeling that they are losing themselves. Because of this, needing another person can feel dangerous. But authentic love can gradually challenge that belief. When an avoidant begins moving toward connection instead of constantly seeking distance, it can reveal a major emotional transformation. In the beginning, closeness may trigger their instinct to retreat. Even after a beautiful or intimate moment, they might suddenly need space because the intensity feels overwhelming. But when their feelings become deeper and the relationship begins to feel emotionally safe, something changes. Closeness no longer feels quite as threatening. They begin realizing that being close to someone doesn't mean giving up their independence. They can maintain their identity while still allowing another person into their emotional world. This understanding develops slowly through repeated experiences. They learn that intimacy doesn't have to come with pressure. They can share their life with someone while still having boundaries, freedom, and individuality. Eventually, the urge to escape can become weaker than the desire to connect. You may see this through very small behaviors. Someone who once disappeared for long periods after an emotional conversation may now reach out much sooner. They might initiate contact instead of waiting for you to do it. They may ask how you're doing, check in without a specific reason, or simply want to spend time with you without needing to fill every moment with distractions. Those actions might look insignificant from the outside, but emotionally, they can represent enormous progress. Every movement toward connection is a moment in which they are challenging their old programming. Their heart is beginning to accept something their mind once considered dangerous. Intimacy can actually be safe. In the past, distance may have been their primary way of calming themselves. When emotions became intense, they would separate themselves from the person or situation until they felt in control again. But genuine love can introduce another form of emotional regulation. They begin discovering that closeness itself can sometimes create calm. Your presence may gradually become associated with comfort instead of pressure. They start realizing that the right connection doesn't have to suffocate them. It can actually help them feel grounded. At first, this realization may confuse them. They may wonder why they don't want as much space as they once did. Instead of constantly craving separation, they may begin missing you when you're gone. And that can feel surprisingly vulnerable. For the first time, emotional needs they once pushed away may begin rising to the surface. They may quietly acknowledge that your presence makes them feel peaceful, understood, or emotionally secure. They don't just miss being around you, they begin missing the warmth,
understanding, and emotional connection they experience with you. Over time, this desire starts influencing the way they behave. Rather than withdrawing whenever discomfort appears, they may reach out for reassurance. Instead of hiding what they need, they may begin expressing it. They might not suddenly become poetic or emotionally expressive, but their behavior starts speaking for them.
A message when they normally would have stayed silent. A visit when they would usually choose isolation. A gentle touch when their old response would have been to pull away. These seemingly simple actions can reveal that love is beginning to influence their choices more strongly than fear. When an avoidant starts seeking closeness instead of constantly protecting their distance, it can be a powerful indication that the relationship has become deeply meaningful to them. The emotional walls that once kept everyone out begin to soften. They no longer see intimacy only as a threat to their freedom. Instead, connection can start feeling like a place where they are allowed to be themselves without judgment. And that is the moment when love begins changing the meaning of safety itself. Another revealing transformation can be seen in their consistency. Avoidant behavior can sometimes appear unpredictable. One day they may be affectionate and engaged, and the next they may seem distant or unreachable. This doesn't always mean they don't care. Often, their behavior reflects an internal struggle between wanting closeness and fearing what closeness might require. Their emotions pull them towards someone while their defenses push them away. But when genuine, grounded love begins taking root, that internal instability can gradually settle. They become less controlled by fear, and their behavior starts matching what they actually feel. They begin showing up because they want to, not because they feel obligated. Love can have a stabilizing effect on someone who has spent years protecting themselves through emotional distance. At first, consistency may feel uncomfortable because reliability requires presence, honesty, and emotional investment. But slowly, they begin learning an important lesson. Consistency doesn't have to mean confinement. It can mean safety. As they become more secure within the connection, their actions start becoming more dependable. You notice it in the way they communicate, the timing of their responses, and whether they follow through on what they promise. Their words and actions begin telling the same story. And that alignment is often one of the clearest signs that something inside them is changing. They begin reaching out when they say they will. They arrive when they promise to. They follow through on plans and commitments that they might have once ignored or avoided. This doesn't mean they have suddenly become flawless. It means something inside them has become stronger than their instinct to run. Love has given their actions a deeper purpose. Slowly, the emotional world that was once dominated by avoidance begins finding balance. Consistency becomes a quiet language through which they communicate feelings they may not yet know how to put into words. For an avoidant, dramatic declarations of love can feel overwhelming. Saying everything they feel in one emotional conversation may be difficult. But steady effort can become their way of expressing what is happening inside them. They may communicate more regularly, remember small details, make thoughtful gestures, or remain connected when the relationship enters an uncomfortable period. Their old impulse was to escape discomfort. Now they are developing a desire to stay. They begin realizing that genuine love isn't built on constant excitement, intensity, or unlimited independence. It is built through trust, patience, reliability, and emotional stability. Developing this kind of consistency isn't easy for them. It requires confronting the parts of themselves they have spent years avoiding: self-doubt, impatience, fear of vulnerability, and the instinct to protect themselves at all costs. But when someone truly matters to them, they may begin wanting to become better than those old patterns. They start thinking about how their behavior affects the person they love. Before making certain decisions, they consider your feelings. Where they once acted almost entirely from self-protection, they begin making room for consideration and mutual understanding. Every promise they keep matters. Every difficult conversation they don't abandon matters. Every moment they choose to stay instead of disappear communicates something without requiring a single romantic confession. It says, "This relationship matters enough for me to work through my fear." You may also notice that distance is no longer their automatic response to conflict. Instead of disappearing for days, they may attempt to work through the disagreement. If they make a mistake, they may acknowledge it instead of becoming defensive or withdrawing. They may even apologize, something their old defenses made extremely difficult. That willingness to take responsibility reveals something important. Preserving the relationship is becoming more important than protecting their ego. Love begins teaching them that accountability doesn't threaten their independence. It strengthens trust, and trust gives the relationship somewhere safe to grow. Over time, their reliability becomes a new emotional language. They begin discovering that love isn't demonstrated only through intense feelings. It is demonstrated through dependability. They may still experience moments of fear and uncertainty, but those emotions no longer automatically determine what they do. Instead, they increasingly choose care, respect, presence, and responsibility. The person who once escaped intimacy begins creating intimacy through consistency, through the small things they repeatedly do to show that they are genuinely there. That is where authentic love becomes visible, not when fear disappears completely, but when fear stops being the force making every decision. Another profound transformation happens when an avoidant becomes willing to let themselves be truly seen. For years, they may have hidden behind independence, emotional control, humor, silence, or the appearance that nothing really affects them. Their feelings, insecurities, fears, and even certain parts of their personality can remain carefully protected behind an emotional wall. Being truly seen can feel dangerous because it means giving someone access to the parts of them that have always felt vulnerable. They may have learned early in life that revealing too much could result in criticism, rejection, embarrassment, or emotional pain. So protecting themselves became almost instinctive. They created an inner fortress and convinced themselves that needing nobody was safer than trusting somebody. But genuine love can begin weakening that fortress. The desire to connect gradually becomes stronger than the desire to hide. At first, you may only see brief flashes of vulnerability. Perhaps they open up after an argument instead of shutting down. Maybe they tell you something personal about their past. They might reveal an emotion they normally keep hidden. These moments may look small from the outside, but they can be enormous steps for someone who has spent years protecting their inner world. They are beginning to understand that being loved requires allowing themselves to be known. Not the carefully managed version they show everyone else, but the person underneath the defenses. With growing trust, they may begin sharing insecurities they previously kept private. They might talk about doubts, fears, old wounds, childhood experiences, or past relationships that influence the way they approach intimacy. They aren't necessarily asking you to rescue them or feel sorry for them. They are trusting you with information they once believed was too dangerous to reveal. That trust communicates something powerful. They believe you can see their vulnerable side without using it against them. And as that trust grows, their emotional walls begin to loosen. You may notice it in the way they handle difficult conversations. Someone who once avoided emotional topics may now be willing to start one. Someone who used logic, sarcasm, or humor to escape uncomfortable feelings may begin sitting with those emotions instead. They might admit that something hurt them. They might acknowledge jealousy. They might even confess that the thought of losing you scares them.
For an avoidant, these admissions can require enormous courage. Every time they speak honestly about an emotion they once denied, they are stepping further outside the emotional territory that used to feel safe. And by doing so, they are handing you a piece of their inner world and trusting you to treat it gently. That trust can be one of the strongest expressions of authentic love. Being seen also means allowing imperfections to become visible.
They may stop trying so hard to appear unaffected. You begin seeing their genuine laughter, frustration, uncertainty, tenderness, disappointment, and confusion. They don't feel the same need to perform strength or pretend that everything is fine. They simply begin existing more honestly around you. For someone who has survived behind emotional walls, that authenticity can feel incredibly freeing. They are no longer focused entirely on maintaining an image. They are choosing to be real, even when being real makes them uncomfortable. This doesn't mean they suddenly become completely open or emotionally expressive. There may still be moments when they need space or struggle to explain what is happening inside them. But now there is an important difference. They come back. They return to the conversation. They explain themselves. They attempt to repair what went wrong. They reconnect after pulling away. That return can speak louder than any declaration. It shows that hiding forever is no longer what they want. They are beginning to understand that love cannot survive through isolation alone. It needs honesty, openness, emotional visibility, and the courage to let another person witness the real self. So when an avoidant finally allows you to see their fears, softness, imperfections, and humanity, don't mistake that openness for something insignificant. It is vulnerability, but it is also love. And authentic love for an avoidant is rarely a sudden explosion of emotion. It is more often a gradual opening of the heart. Their walls don't necessarily disappear overnight. They weaken through repeated experiences of safety, patience, trust, and genuine connection. Love teaches them lessons that fear never could. That vulnerability doesn't make them weak. That intimacy doesn't have to mean losing themselves. That closeness isn't the same thing as captivity. You see the transformation when they stay instead of running, communicate instead of hiding, and consider your heart instead of protecting only their own. Their love may not always arrive through perfect words. Sometimes it appears through effort, through consistency, through presence, through the willingness to return. And when someone who once spent years avoiding emotional closeness finally risks being known, that is love in one of its most authentic forms. A love that isn't merely felt inside. A love that is brave enough to be lived.